Say today on the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. That last headline put the president firmly in the Western Cape, in Cape Town. In fact, he's in Stellenbosch at the moment, talking to the local community there, including local business people. Let's join the president now.
For us. Now, clearly it impacts on what? It impacts on the first part, which I'll talk to you about later. Johan Kriege is about the land reform process. What is it that we're going to be focusing on? And so I'll park that for a moment and talk to Johan Malan's question about what is it that we can do to support the wine industry. And I guess there is a lot. Now, what I think is important is for us to have a conversation and a dialogue about the support that needs to be given to the wine industry, the type of support measures, be they incentives, be they any other initiatives that we can take. We need to sit down and have a proper discussion, because you are right. In other countries, particularly the Northern Hemisphere countries, as well as a country like Australia, they are supported, well supported by their governments. And in our case, the support is very minimal, if it is there at all. Now, there is an imbalance, because there are certain industries that we support. For instance, we support the auto industry to good effect. We export Mercedes-Benzes, we export BMWs, and tomorrow I'm going to a Nissan factory. We support that because they are putting in a big line, investing a lot of money. But we support our auto industry. And it is good that we should, because it is a great job creator. And it does not only create jobs directly, but the value chain is also important for job creation. And the wine industry is also very important in that regard. And I would say, even agriculture, and I'll deal with one of the questions about emerging farmers and all that. So that industry does need, this industry rather, does need support. Now, what I want to invite you on is that let us have a conversation, let us have a dialogue about the measures and initiatives we can embark on to support the industry. What is it that we should be doing to give more support to this flag bearer of our country, which exports wonderful products that are enjoyed by many countries. For instance, in China, I'm told that the Chinese, their palate is becoming more and more advanced. They like drinking wine, and that's where we need to open up channels for exporting our wine. And they're the biggest market in the world, and they are becoming much more sophisticated. And that is where we should be taking our wine. As we are now taking our beef. They are importing our beef in large measures. And that has happened because we opened up the channel. I remember a few years ago when I went on a visit to China when I was a deputy president. And we took with us, Mr. Morgan, we took with us people from one of your competitors, from Current Beef. And they wanted to open up channels for beef exportation to China. And we were able to, lead them in the right direction. And then they started meeting a number of importers in China. And today they're exporting quite a lot of their product there. And I'm sure that the beef industry is beginning to benefit from that. And this happened because they came along on a state visit that I had to China when I was deputy president. And I keep saying that when I travel, and will be doing so quite a bit as president after the elections, when we go on these state visits, we want the business community to come along with us. I'd like to see you as wine producers coming along so that we can increase the branding of our wine in those countries, so that we can open up channels for you to be able to export And so maybe the Wine Association can come along on some of these visits. When Xi Jinping travels around the world, President of China, he usually travels with a big business delegation. And as they go into any country, their footprint is quite large and they make a big impression. Now, that's exactly what I want us to start doing as South Africa, as South African businesses. When you hear that we're going to travel wherever in the world, I always insist that there should be a business delegation. We should go to that country and hold a business forum and have deep discussions with the various business people that we meet there. So, in answering your question, Mr. Malan, I want us to increase and improve the branding of South Africa. We come from the most beautiful country in the world, and I want us to show that shine of our country and to sell our country in the best and exponential way. And wine, for me, and agricultural capability is one of those important things. Now, the other one, which many people have not been paying attention to, is that recently we signed to the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement. Market of 1.2 billion is opening up to all of you sitting here with your agricultural products, with your wine as well. And Africa is growing, and the middle class is emerging on the African continent. The palates of Africans is just developing, and no country sells better wine or any wine than we do on the African continent. And I am saying, rather than Africa importing wine from Portugal, from Spain and all that, we should be going around and seeing South African products on all those shelves in the various African countries. And this is a great opportunity for us as South Africans, because we are the most industrialized country on the continent. We have the most capable farmers, some of whom are now being sort of stolen by a number of countries on the continent. But that's where we should take our products. 1/3 of our exports to Africa are finished products. And wine lends itself to that. It's not so much exporting grapes, it's much more exporting the finished product, which is wine. So let's open our eyes to what Africa has to offer. And as we travel around various countries on the African continent, I want us to be taking a business delegation, which should include many of you as wine farmers, to those countries so that we can go and showcase what South Africa has to offer. Yes, to countries that have had, unfortunate histories, but that are picking themselves up and beginning to demonstrate their growth potential. Countries like Angola. Angola is a big market and growing market. Countries like Kenya, growing market. Many countries on the west part of Africa. So all those countries want to open their arms to South Africa. And there's nothing better than when we go along with you and help you open all those markets. So I look forward to that. Now, Chris Kutsier says, we like you as farmers. I'm glad. I'm a farmer as well. But what can we do to secure our future? What we can do to secure the future of farming is just being able to do what I've been saying throughout the country. Let's work together. Let us together grow South Africa. Farmers should never see themselves as an island, as standing away and apart from everything else that's happening in the country. We've got to be part of the solution. We've got to be part of the change. We've got to be working together. But that also means that we must embrace the change. This is precisely what Ibrahim Rasool was saying. It basically means that we must create a balance. There is great success that many of you have achieved as farmers. And South African farmers are really good, they're professional, they run really good businesses, and many of those are family businesses. On the other side, we've had a very sad history, a terrible history, particularly on land issues. And I always say that, land was the original sin that was committed the very first day that Jan van Riebeeck set his foot here. Now, obviously, we don't want to dwell on the past. We want to look forward. And this is what Beyers has been saying over and over again, that let us look forward. The past is there to inform us what not to do ever again. And the past is about how do we correct the things that happened in the past. And colleagues, the constitution of our country is the best document that we need to look at, because it talks about the past, it also talks about the future. The future is a great future if we all work together. We need to recognize the injustices that happened in the past and be convinced that yes, there were horrible injustices, but we cannot remain stuck in one place. We need to look forward. And looking forward means that we've all got to work together to find the solutions. And the solutions are not about being isolationists or exclusionists, saying that no, I'm going to hide my head in the sand like an ostrich. It basically means saying, what is it that we can do collectively, work together, and find solutions? Land reform is one of those. The future that we can have as a nation is a bright future if we all commit to saying, here's a problem, how can we do it? Now, individual farmers, and Ibrahim started touching on this, individual farmers have found a way of saying, we are going to solve this problem, we'll come up with our own projects, our own processes that are going to address that horrible past, of including our own workers into a brighter future as we move ahead. I have a good friend, a farmer called Carstens, whom you may know. I thought he would be here today, he's not here. He farms grapes on the Orange River. And each time I try to go there, I converse with him. And he's come up with a lot of projects to empower his female workers. He's come up with a number of projects to empower his own workers. And he says, through this, I am securing a future, not so much for myself, but I'm securing a future for everyone, including my own children and grandchildren. And he is at peace with a number of initiatives that he has embarked upon, initiatives that he says have actually led him in a way where his business is now thriving, much more than it would have thrived in the past. And I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs, but there are a number of projects that we can all embark on along the land reform process. And it starts with people being convinced that this is a common problem that we must solve. And I'm saying to all of us as South African farmers, let us look at the land reform process in a positive way, rather than look at it in a negative way. Let us say, what is it that we can do as farmers in South Africa to address this problem? Now, clearly, the process is ongoing in Parliament, and it will lead to a particular end. But at the same time, we need to look at the practical reality of everything and say, how do we do it now? There's going to be an expropriation bill that is going to be piloted through Parliament. And that bill is quite progressive. It's a progressive bill that looks at how can we enhance land reform in our country. And we're going to be looking at land that is owned by the state, land that is owned by state owned enterprises, land that is not being used, land that was sometimes illegally acquired, and land that is going to be addressed in terms of our constitution, where we say the public interest is to look after the interests of everyone, and where people are going to be able to sit down and come up with their own proposals on what's best can be done. Now, I can assure you, and I've been saying this over and over, the land reform process is something that we should never fear. It is going to be done in accordance with the rule of law. It is going to be done in accordance with our constitution. It's not going to be land grabs, where you grab land outside the parameters of our laws. It is going to be done in a way where we find a balanced medium, where everyone in our country feels that, yes, this constitution is working for us. Because in the end, the constitution endears us to ensure that there is security of tenure for everyone. Everyone must have a sense that this is a constitution that works for them. And it should be so between landless people as well as landowners. We should have that very good balance. Right now here in the Western Cape, particularly, we're facing another real serious challenge. A challenge of the evictions on farms, where workers are just evicted on farms. And some of the stories that I heard when I went to Vredendal are really sad stories of people who've worked on farms for 25 years and more, and one day they're just moved and kicked out of the farm, which evokes the memory of Sol Plaatje. Sol Plaatje was one of those people who was the founders of the ANC. In 1912, he wrote a book about how this land reform process was unfolding through the 1913 Land Act, where he writes a story of a family that was evicted from a farm, and where, as they were being driven out in the middle of the night, they were on their cart with their young child. The child dies on their journey. And as the child dies on their journey, the parents have to bury the child by the side of the road. Having lived on a farm where they were born for many years, they bury the child on the side of the road, and Sol Plaatje then writes that this is a process through which we are now treated as pariahs in the land of our birth. And that story has remained very, very cogent and relevant to this day. And I'm saying to farm owners that in the end, any farm owner has got a much stronger position than a farm worker. And the needs in this day and time to deal with people with a better deal of humanity, and deal with them knowing that we are dealing with human beings, so that we don't deal with them as they did in 1913, and have a proper balance and say my humanity should dictate that I should have the type of humanity that will not make me just evict these people off their farm. And that feeds into the land reform process that we are involved in. And all I'm doing is that let all of us as South Africans be filled with compassion for our fellow citizens, be filled with consideration and understanding about issues that impact on the livelihoods of the people of our country. And if we can do that, then we begin to find a better balance, so that in the end we secure a better future for all of us. Because in the end, colleagues, it was the ANC that said, and it was the forebears of the ANC. And remember, ANC is formed in 1912. 1912, it starts calling for a united South Africa where all of us can live together. It took the ANC 82 years to finally have that accepted and realized, that we all should be living in a united country where there is democracy and where the color of your skin is not the determinant of the livelihood that you should have. And having
All right, and that's where we're going to leave that conversation the President is having in the Western Cape. He's in Stellenbosch, and he's speaking to the farming community there. And I guess it was a message really about trying to reassure them. He says that he's trying to build a country where we can build it together. He says, let's come together. And he was trying to reassure them about the land reform process. And he says that this is nothing to fear, and that in the steps that will be taken by government, it's going to be about enhancing land reform, and it will not be done in a haphazard manner. It will always be following the rule of law and the Constitution, and it will not be characterized by any sort of land grab. And he said, you know, he wants to reach out to this community and saying that we should have compassion for our fellow citizens and some of the circumstances and the challenges that other citizens are facing, and that hopefully by working together there'd be a better balance in the country. So that was the President talking to the community of Stellenbosch. All right, before we carry on, let's just catch you up and ask you the